Would love to invite all the panelists to come on stage too as well. So come on up, ladies, and let's give them all a warm round of applause. Okay, so again, would love to thank Asians Are Strong for bringing us together today for this incredible celebration of API Women, this Women's History Month. And today we're going to talk about overcoming imposter syndrome, that's where you're assigned to a position, a job that you don't think you're actually qualified for, and you start to get that nagging feeling like you don't deserve your accomplishments, even though there's lots of evidence to back up your success. So would love to have everyone introduce themselves. Perhaps we could start down there with Ann Fong.
Hi, everyone. Something wrong? You know who to call, Ann Fong. I am a personal injury lawyer here in California.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn. I'm 17, and I'm a fashion designer.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm one half of Chemist Confessions. I'm a cosmetic chemist by trade and now, I guess, an entrepreneur.
Hi everyone, I'm Gloria. I'm the other half of Chemist Confessions, also a chemist by trade and now runs our own skincare brand and content platform.
Fantastic. Now, ladies, I'd like to start, first of all, with the idea of imposter syndrome. Where do you think it comes from? And how much do you feel that your cultural background or society expectations shapes that? Please.
I guess I'll go first. I think for me personally, it's that feeling of, as a minority in more ways than one, as a woman in business and as an Asian in business, a lot of times you get that feeling, that pressure of what you do represents something bigger than you. You can't just be you. It feels like if you fail, then you're a poor representation of Asian women in business, and that in itself makes you feel a lot more pressure than someone that may just think it's okay to fail fast and learn from it. So I think for me, that's a big source of it.
How about for you?
I guess for me, I would probably say through parent teaching, always feeling like there's another goal that I can reach. And, as you grow up with that feeling, every award or even compliment or even milestone that you achieve is always just the next step. It's not like I should Gloria and I, we always have to take turns and be like, wait, we should be celebrating this moment. This is a huge achievement. But a lot of times you're always like, what's the next thing? You're not even thinking, you're trying to just keep moving and keep growing, yeah.
I think it's like how society and pressure puts onto you, maybe even especially because we are Asian women, that you're almost undeserving of your success and that it shouldn't be celebrated and that it's a normal thing.
I think a lot of my upbringing was traditional for coming from an immigrant background, and my parents didn't have any entrepreneurial skills, and it was just fall in line, get a job, go to school. It was never really a big vision of having your own law firm and running your law firm. It was get a good job at a law firm. And so I think that was the old school mentality. I think nowadays things have changed a lot more with the new generation, and that there are more and more entrepreneurs, and specifically female entrepreneurs.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, maybe provide an example of when you personally experienced or felt imposter syndrome in your career or your personal life. Share that moment and how you overcame that. Any of you can feel free to start, yeah.
So part of my background is I didn't really want to always become a lawyer. My undergrad degree, I started off in college, was in business. And it was something I knew that was safe in a sense, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 19, 20 going to college. It was like, okay, well, at least I could do that. And once I realized law was what I wanted to do, I had to take the LSATs. And when I took the LSATs, I didn't score too well. Say I scored very, very low. And the only law school that I was accepted or allowed to go is a CBA law school. And so that's kind of considered like a low-tier law school. And even they wouldn't let me in. And so I I interviewed with the dean. I still really wanted to go to law school, become a lawyer, and he told me that I had to take the LSATs again and score 25% higher to get to their minimum. And so at that point, I was like, am I going to give up my dream? Like, maybe I'm not supposed to be a lawyer. Like, this is ridiculous. I couldn't even score the bare minimum to get into the lowest school. Am I really going to be able to go to law school? Am I going to be able to pass the bar? All those fears, I just started questioning whether or not I was supposed to be a lawyer. And after the weekend of questioning it, I realized, well, you know, I can sit here and sob and cry and not become a lawyer and just figure something else out. Or I could bust my butt and study and score higher and get into law school and become a lawyer. So that's what I did, because I realized that's how much I wanted to become a lawyer, that whatever effort I needed to put in. But I definitely doubted myself. I was scared. I almost rearranged my whole life that entire weekend when I was thinking about, should I do this or should I not? But ultimately, when I was asking myself, what do you want, Anne? What do you want in your life? What is your future and your career going to be? Are you going to just do something, you know, easy and fall back on, or are you going to follow your heart and do what you really want to do, which is go to law school and be a lawyer? And so that's what it was, and that's how I overcame it. Was just, it really came down to what I wanted and being able to say, you know what, doubts and fears, goodbye, and just kind of following my heart and what I wanted to do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. How about you, Ashlyn?
Yeah, so this is something that I feel like I've kind of came to recently, or kind of I guess the imposter syndrome really, like, I never knew what it was before, and when I did find out, it was very almost like, yeah, this is what it is, like, this is what I'm going through, this is what's happening. Because I feel like I started fashion at such a young age, and like at 6 I feel like there's this pressure, like, oh, I have a head start, I need constantly be wowing, constantly be excelling in everything that I do. And when I'm not doing that, it almost feels like this is not me, right? And or this, I would not like very much celebrate any of my accomplishments. It would be like, what's the next thing, and how can I become better? How can I keep climbing up until I build like that dream that I'm still trying to build today, which is like, you know, a very large and like luxury fashion brand. And I feel like because I've been doing it for such a long time, and like, why have I not like reached that? Like, why have I not reached that? And it would always kind of come to me like, and especially like in the past year, I've been going through so many like different like mental health things, I guess, obviously because I'm a teenager, and because I'm in school, but it's also because I realized that I never really like truly celebrated my accomplishments. Like, I never told myself that I'm proud of myself for what I've done, or I'm proud of myself for how far I've come. And I feel like recently, like, I've been very much kind of coming back and like really building up my self-value and like reminding myself, like, I feel like for me, like, affirmations and just the smallest things, like reminding myself like who I am, would go so far for me. And yeah, that's one of my experiences.
Why do you, because I'm hearing a theme here, why do you think it's tricky or challenging for high-performing women or those who may experience imposter syndrome? Why is it so difficult for us to accept and recognize our own accomplishments and successes in life? What do you think?
I don't want to throw my parents under the bus here, but I do think, kind of mirroring off of what Victoria said earlier, is that when you accomplish something as a child, you know, sometimes, and your parents, I don't think it's wrong, but they do always challenge you to do more, to do more, to do more. And I think that it grows, it becomes a habit after a while, that you're like, oh, but I can do better, or I should do better. And I also think that it's coupled by that energy of, if you're not at the top, then you're nothing. But at the same time, that's not helpful, because you have to take these little steps to get to the top, to get to where you want to be. And to sustain yourself between these little milestones, you need the celebration. Otherwise, you'll never get there. And I think this is part of, at least for me, on a more personal level, this is part of my journey, is to shelf that and to recognize that. And sometimes on the flip side is to look at my colleagues who are more capable of celebrating the little wins and just aspire to be more like them. And a lot of times I know, even though it's hard, you have to almost say it out loud. You know, you have to take a step back, give yourself some time, and celebrate the wins. And I think there's, and that, don't be so modest. I think we do grow up being told to be modest. You can't gloat about yourself, and it's not gloating, but that's taken so far that you can't even recognize the good things that you did. And I think that's something that I'll get over.
So, Anne, do you celebrate every time you get a new billboard up, or?
No, along with what everyone is saying here, there's sometimes I just stop and think like, wow, and I'm like, it's been 12 years since I've been licensed and building my practice, and some days I'm still like just shocked and like don't even realize you're just grinding and hustling and working. And then, when I started my firm, it was from my house. I didn't even have an office, and then we expanded, and here I am now. And it's just weird, those small wins definitely count. But I think, like you said, it's in our nature to kind of like, what's next? What are we going to do more? And it's hard to live in the moment. But yeah, I can't celebrate every billboard because that would be a lot of celebration.
Pop the champagne.
But yeah, right now I think that what helps me and myself is when celebrating the little wins I do see with my kids. So when I see them play a sport or when I see them do something, it's so easy to be like, good job, like that's a win, or you won this set and maybe you didn't win the whole thing. And it's so easy to put that on them. And yet when we look at ourselves in the mirror, it's a little more difficult, right? So there's that challenge as well, but I think it's easier when I see it happening with my kids.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to explore that a little bit further, maybe with Victoria here. What are some strategies that you like to use to overcome any feelings of, say, self-doubt, which is something that seems to drive a lot of imposter syndrome?
Okay, recently, I'm lucky to have a business partner I trust. So I think in that sense, it's a lot easier to champion us versus myself, just as an individual. So in that sense, I feel like I've had almost like a kind of like a step stool, or like a easier way of exercising how to champion, me, is just like through what we've built together through the company and all of those joint efforts. So I would say that's one aspect. I think the other aspect is just having a lot more, it's just through experience. I was like kind of culminating all the questions that you've been asking is like, thinking about when did imposter syndrome start? It definitely started in college because especially when you're studying things like STEM, you're around incredibly intelligent people, and academia really is not a good place to it's not a good place for imposter syndrome because they don't allow necessarily for error when you start out, and it's really difficult to acknowledge error in an academia setting. So in the STEM world, and then as you go on into your career, it gets even harder because like you get this experience, you're starting to be seen as an expert, and then it gets harder and harder to say like, every once in a while, we're all human, we make an error. So I think Gloria and I, we've dabbled in that a bit, and I would say probably the thing that has helped me a lot is seeing other experts make a mistake. I hate to say it, it's just like, it's one of those things that makes you realize we all will experience imposter syndrome, and we will continue to experience it through our lives. I think in not even a career setting, like Gloria and I are recently new parents, and even that is imposter syndrome as parents. Like we talk about this a lot. It's like, how does any human have the knowledge into raising a human being into this world that feels very crazy? So I think it's like constantly remembering that one, we're not the only ones, everyone deals with it. And then at the same time knowing that, using that to build confidence in like, hey, through my experience, I'm gonna make the best choice, the most logical choice I can, and then that's it. Just set it and forget, and like try not to let more thoughts or more guilt or whatever, any of that, come into play. And I think that I would say that's how I deal with it.
Yeah, some really thoughtful strategies there. Ashlyn, what would you say to someone who feels like they have to be perfect in order to succeed?
Yeah, I think especially as women, like you have to reach the top tier to really like prove yourself, like constantly proving yourself to everyone around you, and like to show that yes, I'm as good as you, like I'm or maybe I'm even better, but like it's so hard to like kind of prove that all the time, and I feel like we always get that pressure to be perfect, and once you reach almost like a success, like you want to keep going, and you're like this is already such a high standard, like I need to keep going, I need to be even better, reach something even more successful. And I think that because of like these like self-doubt kind of feelings, you almost like that's what kind of creates this imposter syndrome, I guess. You not feeling like you did this, right? You not feeling like that, like if I look back at something that I did, I would be like, this doesn't feel like me, like I don't feel like today I was the one that accomplished like A or B. And it's so important, like you guys have said before, to really be in the moment and really just stop and for a second to be like celebratory of like what you've just done, what you just accomplished. It could be something so small. But we sometimes forget to do that because we're always moving at such a fast pace.
How about you? How about for you, Anne? Like, what would you say to maybe a mentee who's feeling like they have to be perfect all the time in order to feel like they can come off or be perceived as successful?
So before I answer that, can I just go back to the question that Victoria was some of this, like what tricks do you do?
Yeah, of course.
Just because it's cute and I really want to share it. So my daughter is 9 years old, and I think that, words of affirmation and continuing to kind of tell yourself that you're a baddie. So my 9-year-old, every night before we go to bed, I say to her, hey, Annie, you're a baddie. And she goes, Mommy, you're a baddie. And together we dance and we go, we're baddies. And there's some nights I don't feel like a baddie, but I'm telling you, when she says it to me, I feel like a baddie. So it's really important to continue, kind of like a fake it till you make it. Sometimes you don't feel it and you don't feel worthy, or you don't feel like you deserve it, but sometimes you just fake it till you make it, and then you feel it, and then you feel good. So it takes you to the next stop. So to everyone out there, if you guys ever need a trick, tell yourself, look in the mirror and say you're a baddie, okay? Going back to the question, sorry. The question about being perfect and
yes.
So I put myself out there, right? Like I'm like, look at my billboard, I'm on TV, you see me on a bus. So can you imagine the idea and the notion of, having to project the image of being perfect? So I think, I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm wearing braces right now. And if we're talking just about being perfect and looks and everything, when I first started doing the billboards, I was scared to death of the reaction. I was scared. It wasn't like I thought I was a beauty queen and I deserved to be on a billboard. It wasn't like, I definitely thought it wasn't so much, am I pretty enough to be on a billboard, but is my community going to accept what they see? And not by my looks, but as an Asian, female minority lawyer in personal injury, which is a male-dominated thing. And is the community going to respect that and say, yeah, she looks like she could be a good lawyer? And I doubted that. I was fearful of that. But then when I started thinking about, what was more important to me, I wanted to project that what we were used to seeing before was not someone that looked like me. And so even though the look, like I was scared I might not fit that perfect mold, I had to get out of that. So I do constantly still battle with, how do people think about me? I get comments about just even my looks on my braces and how I don't look like what I look like on the billboards. So there's definitely that pressure, but at the same time, I'm at a point where I don't care. I've come to accept that you're never going to be a perfect person, a perfect lawyer, wife, boss woman, a mother, and you're going to fail in a lot of things, and it's okay. And the more that I've accepted that, the easier life has become. Like, we don't need to be perfect, and I think that's okay. So it's definitely a sense of growth to accept that.
And I have to personally say how empowering it is to see a badass Asian woman in personal injury on billboards all across Northern California. So congratulations to you. And brought up something that kind of goes into my next question here, but the importance of a support system while navigating imposter syndrome. Did any of you have a support system while you were getting through perhaps launching your businesses?
I think, like Victoria mentioned, we're very lucky that we were very aligned from the start to get each other through the ups and downs. And there's some ups and there are a lot of downs in starting your own business and your own venture. So that's really helpful and really special because we all know that breakups between founders can often be the worst ones. But I think it's also a learning journey to be vulnerable in front of each other, and not just with your partner, but say with your spouses, your friends, because it's through this journey of going through a lot of dramatic ups and downs I realized I don't talk to my parents about these things. I don't talk to my sister about these things. It's not by design. I'm lucky in that I have a pretty warm family, but you're so used to only sharing the positive that you forget to share that vulnerability with those who are closest to you. But that is so important. And when you do, you realize they are there for you. And just try it. And I know it's really hard because a lot of us all have a lot of walls up, and it's even more important to look and act strong to those who are strangers. It's even more important for you to look tough for your parents. Like, hey, look, I'm independent, I can do my thing, like, I got this. But your family, your friends, your closest people are there for you, and sharing that vulnerability is not being weak. It is the next step to move forward. And I think in that sense, I do think, at least I am very guilty of not tapping into that network enough. And I think a lot of us can try to share that feeling with each other.
How about for you, Gloria?
Yeah, I think I told Gloria probably at a low point. I basically told her, I was like, hey, by the end of this, let's not have to go to therapy to have to rebuild our friendship again. So that's kind of the nature of, how close we are in that sense, and just trying to be, I think, as open as possible. Sometimes it's tough because I don't want her to worry about me, but I think that also symbolizes kind of how I am with kind of what Gloria's mentioning with your family and your loved ones. It's it's not even about having to show a strong, successful profile. It's about not worrying them and then having to hear them worry about me all the time when they call. So, yeah, but in terms of support system, I think your support system is only as helpful as you allow them to be. And so it's very important to have some self-awareness about what's going on with you so that you can be better so you can get that help or whatever that support and pick-me-up that you need from your loved ones. It's not, I have to remind myself, especially with my husband, it's he's not a mind reader. I gotta, be honest and, cue him in on hey, today was kind of a bad day, but I would say that, yeah, it's incredibly important. I think Gloria and I, after doing this for so long, time and time, not only it's for us, but we've seen that if you don't have a support system and you're putting yourself out there, let's say doing your own venture or whatever, and that support system's not there or not healthy, we have found that to be not pretty impactful on the journey. But if your support system is solid and you're just starting and you're trying to build something, we found that is a really great foundation for whatever adventure you're trying to kickstart. So I would say that's one of the experiences that we've taken away through this journey and seen from other founder friends.
Yeah, I think for me, in the beginning, I definitely feel like I had to really go through it by myself. just because I felt like no one would really like understand, right? Like my friends would not understand because they're, you know, they're the same age as me, but like they don't want the same things, or they're not doing the same things after school. Yeah, and I feel like my parents wouldn't understand because maybe I would be disappointing them, and like, yeah. But I think as like time kind of like progressed, you know, because I put myself out there as well, it's so like, easy to get so much hate from like peers and like just kids, right? Sorry, I get so emotional all the time. Yeah, but it's so easy. But before, I would never let that affect me. Like I would never let that affect me. But sorry, but
You're a baddie. Let me tell you that. Don't you forget, you're a baddie. Okay?
Yeah. But then then it began to affect me, and I began to feel it, and I would lean on my mom all the time, and I began to tell her that people are mean to me, and like it hurts, and she really kind of helped me build my self-confidence back up, and sorry, and I like really want. Sorry.
You're doing great.
And like, I just want to see how much I admire you, like telling your daughter every night, saying that you're a baddie. Like, it goes so far. It goes so far. And yeah, and I feel like ever since then, I've been able to rebuild that and like just rebuild my love for myself. And yeah, and you're gonna raise a badass daughter.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want everyone, let's give her a big applause for being so open. You are beyond wise for your age. Like, I cannot believe you're 17. You're amazing. You are a baddie. Thank you so much for sharing that. Along the lines of having a support system, I've been fortunate enough to have an amazing family. I have my best friends that are here with me today, who have been through with me, like, you know, the journey going through law school, let me live with them, been there since the beginning. And so I've been fortunate enough to have the support from my family and my friends. And I think it means the world. I think it's, you know, it's as successful as, you know, the business has become. I wouldn't not have been able to accomplish anything without having my family, you know, by my side and having my cheerleaders. And so it's very important. And for people who may not have that support or may not have that, go find you some new people, okay? Like if you're around bad people, there will be other people to support you. Find yourself a support system, friends, whether it be networking, if you're not getting that support right now.
Thank you so much to the panel. You know, we live in a society where it's very easy to fall victim to external validation, or we're feeling like we're constantly maybe comparing ourselves to other people, our own progress, like, oh, that other person's business seems to be growing faster than mine, or how come they got that promotion instead of me? So, you know, how do you stand strong in developing your own sense of self-worth that's independent of what others might think of you?
I think it's common to think. Sometimes I look at that, and when I'm victim to that kind of mentality of comparing myself, I have to remind myself that I am my harshest critic. I don't think anyone out there judges me harder and more punishing than myself, and I have to give myself a break. And that to me is both, it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes you do push yourself really hard and you don't allow yourself to celebrate the wins that you do have. But on the flip side, you look at the outside and you're like, you know what? Like, I can only push myself so far, and this is my journey, and in some way mine alone too. If I can one day wake up and be like, I am very proud of me, and then I know that I will have risen above all of that, and I don't need the outside validation. And the flip side of that is going back to, I think Anne might have said that, is what do you want, right? Sometimes you have to internalize and really think about, and seeing all the outside glitz and glam, especially Victoria and I are in skincare. It's a very fast-moving world. There is a lot of rising star, the hottest brands, this and that. And in our 6-7 years together, we have seen a lot of them crash and burn. So sometimes it's easy to fall into this vicious cycle of envying what other people have and not seeing the struggles behind the doors, because everyone does, everyone has that. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, are we okay to give up XYZ to achieve this perceived glitz and glam? Yes or no? What is really important to us? Do we want to say this really inflammatory thing that's very, very, very trendy just so we can get the views and the likes, but it's not something we believe in? So all of this is a balance, and every day you just have to check back in with yourself of what do I want and what am I willing to sacrifice for it. And it's okay when it's okay when you walk away from that temptation, because at the end of the day, you can't do anything if you give up who you are and what your true value system is for.
Ashley, I'd like to ask the same question to you. Fashion is a very competitive space as well. Lots of people are also in fashion. We see a lot of influencers who are in that space. So how do you navigate that?
I think that for me, like when I'm like, social media is like moving so fast, and it's like so easy for like kids around me or like just everywhere around. Like we're always constantly comparing ourselves to people like us, like our age. And I think for the fashion world, like I wouldn't say I've like ever, or maybe not ever, but like I wouldn't always like compare myself to other designers, just because I feel like my like style is definitely like different or like unique. But I do like always see like them like having like like you said, like a fast-paced rising star, and I'm just like, how do they get there? Like what were they like? They had so many like resources to like really be able to like get to that like top, you know. And I feel like that's when I would compare myself and be like, why is my brand not as building as fast, or like why am I not being able to get to these places or achieve these things? But then like there's like the fashion side, but then also I feel like on the personal side, like I would like compare my life to like other girls, because like they would be like, oh, they're always, you know, like with their friends and going out and having fun. But I feel like, oh, I'm always at home or like working, you know, like I feel like there's that. But then I also need to remind myself like who I am and like what I like to do. And
standing strong in your values.
Exactly.
Focusing on our own journeys, really.
Right.
And how about for you, Anne? What would you say?
So I think that as an entrepreneur, you always have to be aware of your competition, right? So you'd be ignorant if you didn't know who you're with business against. But I think with my personal journey, I've always been, the competition is in the mirror. I'm not trying to take out this next firm or the other firm. It's, who are you, Anne? What do you want? And so I look at myself in the mirror all the time and challenge myself and compete with, really try to find out what it is I'm going after versus trying to be better than the next firm or the next attorney or anything like that. And that's hard to do. It's hard to not look and say, oh, look at them and what are they doing? But at the same time, I think that keeping true to myself and just knowing that my vision and who I am and my journey, making that important, it just keeps me true to who I am instead of sacrificing my values later on just to be bigger or to be better.
I was going to add to that, probably one of the things that Gloria and I often face is usually when it comes to investments, raising money, networking. That space can be a lot more male dominant, although I would say beauty in terms of gender is actually one of the healthier industries. And I think time and time again, we are always questioned, why aren't you the blank of blank? Why aren't you launching the blank of blank? It's so hot right now, you know? And I think that I cannot say enough that if you do not have a healthy sense of confidence in your ability and expertise, that kind of thought can be so toxic to your journey because it is so impressionable. It will drive your decision. And we've seen so many brands out there have to follow those directions or feel that sway their strategy, their brand identity. and because of that, they fail. So I feel like it's really important, something that I feel like is important to us is just having that strength to not sway and know that truly what is your core mission and value. And for Gloria and I, we understand that our mission may not be the top successful strategy, but it's successful for us, and it helps us in creating a more timeless brand mission and brand value. So I just felt like that was a really important thing for us.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, how do you stay true and develop confidence in your vision when there are so many external pressures and voices, maybe investors telling you to go a different way?
Well, for us personally, it's not taking on too much money because that is a very, very real pressure. And we have worked very closely with other companies and witnessed firsthand of how, hey, you got the Forbes article because you took in that glitzy $4 million check, and next thing you know, you are doing what you never wanted to do in a corporate setting, which is just whatever the man with the money bag tells you to do. So it is a very real pressure on the business side, right? So for me, it's gonna be different for everyone, but it's a dynamic that you're gonna have to figure out, which is kind of that you have to map it out around yourself a little bit first. This is ideally, if money grows on trees, this is what I will do, this is who I gotta be. But how do you marry that with a vision that investor can get on board with? How do this is me at the core, but this is how I get people to understand who I am. And find the person that aligns with you on that vision. A lot of times, I think, in the entrepreneurship world, we've met so many entrepreneurs along the way that they will just take money because it's there. And I'm not saying money is important to business, but at the same time, that if the vision isn't actually truly aligned with your investors, it will fail in the long run because you're either fighting about it or you're creating something that you don't recognize anymore. And it's just not a good long-term journey. So it's hard and it's very time consuming, but it's very important to surround yourself with those people.
Anne and Ashlyn, did you face similar pressures where you were crafting out your own brand and your business as well?
So for me, I didn't really have pressures in that sense because it's always, I've been really good. When I was lucky enough to go to law school and then pass the bar, one of the things I told myself was if I passed the bar and became a lawyer, I kind of made a little pledge to myself that no matter what I do with this license, that wherever I go, and at the time I didn't know I was going to open a law firm, that whatever I do with this license, whether just be working for the county or have a firm, that I'm going to do good, and I'm going to keep my integrity, and I will always be that type of lawyer who's going to want to just really want to help people. And I've stayed true to that this whole time, and I always go back to that. So if there's an opportunity and there's something that's presented that just doesn't feel right, I'm like, no. Like it's easy for me in that sense because that's who I am, and I know that about myself, and I know that those are my values. So it's easy for me in that sense. And I've always kind of, I'm my own boss, so I don't have to check with no one. So that makes it easier too.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like I don't have those as many the similar kind of pressures, but I feel like the pressure would mostly be with myself as well, and always bettering who I am and my brand, and just kind of being able to grow that. I think same with similar to what you were saying. I've always kind of known what I've wanted, and I know that my style isn't for everyone, and I know I wanted to create a couture brand, and I've always kind of been doing that and on the path to that, and I never wanted to switch my switch my style or switch whatever it is, even when someone tells me they don't like it, it's not their taste, and it's well, I don't know, I want to appreciate who we each other are. Mm-hmm. And I always feel the pressure would always be with myself in just bettering myself every day and like kind of continuing to create that like success, I guess.
Did any of you have a turning point where you stopped feeling like an imposter, maybe with something in your own lives? And what changed for you, would you say?
I still sometimes deal with it, and that's like the truth, the honest truth is even having proved and reaching a certain level of success, and I think that it's something that's like I still deal with, but I don't think it'll ever go away, and I think I've accepted that and learned how to deal with it. Having like a little bit of fear and doubt in what you do is kind of a good thing, but the key is to overcome it and to not let it run your decisions, run the moves that you make, right? So I'm okay with it. It still exists, and I just keep, jumping over it and getting by.
Gloria might laugh, but I feel like, I don't know if it's like a light switch moment, but there was a high school student that approached us and basically, not high school, but she basically was like, oh my gosh, I know you guys. She's like, I've been listening to you guys since I was in high school.
That was traumatizing.
And when she told us that, it was more like, it's not like oh, right, I'm an expert, but it kind of just like was, we've been in the industry long enough, and I think realizing how there's this budding realm of, I guess, STEM majors that are curious about cosmetic science and things like that, and they're using our content for education. I think that was kind of that moment, like, right, we do know some stuff, and we do know that it is an invaluable piece for people, not just for people in the industry, but for people who are just trying to shop for better without breaking the bank. And I think it's moments like that that are so small, but it's like when you're brushing your teeth that it like dawns on you that you're like, yes, like that. And I think those moments are really important.
I think for me, kind of going off of what Anne said, is it comes and goes. Some days you get it a little bit worse than others, but as we go on this journey, I've kind of that need for external validation has kind of dwindled down to the very few people in your life. I used to, at the beginning, I used to care so much about what all my friends might think about me, even loose acquaintances I haven't talked to years. Now I really don't care what they think about me or my brand, but I care about what Victoria think about the work I'm doing. I care about how one day my daughter is gonna look at what I do and hope that that I can set a good example to her, and that in itself is a high bar. And just down to these few people that I want to do good by, to me is enough to tune out 90% of the noise.
And Ashlyn, how about for you?
I think for me, like, this is like super small, but like I have like I did an internship with my school where I like went to a middle school and I was like just a teacher's assistant, but it was literally so small, and I was in an art class and I was teaching this like I think he was in 6th grade or something, to sew. And he really enjoyed it afterwards, and I was literally like so happy about that. I don't know why, it was so small, but from that moment, I literally felt like, wow, like I have came so far. Like I used to be the student, like I used to be the one sitting, kind of learning how to sew, but then now I'm sitting here like teaching this little kid to sew, and he's actually appreciating it and liking it. And I like from that moment, I don't know why, it just made me feel like I wanted to like really be in the moment and appreciate how far I've come. And and it's obviously, like you guys have both said, like it's something that will always be there and it will always go like up and down. But I think with that big like that milestone of really just remembering to be in the moment, that really helped kind of like change it for me.
Thank you for sharing. Now, with all of you in your respective fields, it's really hard work. You're hustling, you're out there grinding, trying to reach your vision or your key goals there. And you see people start to drop out along the way, maybe your competitors or other people who are in similar fields. What is the thing that keeps you going? Like, what keeps your engine powered when you wake up in the morning, you're just like, man, it's hard to get up. I don't know if I can do this another day. Like, what keeps you going? Do you have a habit, something that you do in the morning, a ritual to get you through it?
I scream at my kids. No, just kidding. So I have a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and so I have no choice but to be up when they're up, right? But I do have a morning routine. We get up, and one of the things I do is I like to work out in the morning. And if I don't work out, it's a different day. So for me, it's a simple thing like that. And I think what it means to me more is just that hour or so I get to myself as well, where there's no kids, there's no husband, the phone isn't ringing. I just get to focus on something that's truly for me, that I want to do. I don't get much of that. So it's a really important time in my schedule and my routine.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing. Yeah, like going to the gym for me is like the key step of my day. It's my favorite part. And it really like, I don't know, for me, like, yeah, it's just like, it's really about like showing up for yourself and like seeing that growth and seeing like always like constantly putting in the work like that for me like helps me like get up in the morning and really remember like who I am and like who I'm gonna be. Yeah.
So I have a 1-year-old. I have not had a lot of me time. Usually it's baby and work baby. So like, that's really all the time I have. I would say though, having just that moment to yourself, whether it's just making coffee, whatever that ritual is important. Also, I work with my best friend, so we gossip. We talk about trashy TV shows.
We complain about our husbands.
Complain about our husbands, politics, whatever that 30 minutes is for our friendship. That also is very healing and kind of motivating. And it's just, and I would say like, I think probably the other thing is I truly am very passionate about our career. I see myself as not even an entrepreneur. I would consider myself more of like a inventor, like just someone that it's the act of being able to create that really drives me in that aspect. I think, it makes it a lot easier to get up in the morning because I know what I want to do. Yeah.
And I just want to say that working out in the morning's been on my it's like an annual goal that's been failing for the past 10 years. So admire you so much for it. And for me, I feel like in my 20s, I had this weird obsession with like, even in my free time, I have to be doing something useful. Yeah. Like I have to read a inspiring book. I have to learn something. I have to be on Coursera. I have to do this. I have to watch these inspiring TED Talks all the time. And right now I'm like, I want to spend at least half an hour of my life every day to read a garbage novel that I am embarrassed to admit to my friend that I read. I would like to invest some time into my Animal Farm game on my cell phone that's completely brainless. And just like allow yourself whatever little moment of like guilty pleasure. Doesn't have to be long, you don't have to obsess with it, but just like that little bit where you're unapologetic about I'm just going to do this really useless thing is super helpful.
It is okay to take some time to take care of ourselves. All right, so my last question here before we open it up to the audience. What advice would you have for other women grappling with imposter syndrome right now?
Fake it till you make it seriously goes a long way. And I think that a lot of people might see and look at us and say, oh, they're successful, great, but you don't see a lot behind that, right? And we're just people like you, we're all the same, right? We go through the same stuff, whether it's a different level. And I think it's really important to just know that we all share those feelings, and it's okay to feel that way. I don't necessarily want it to be a bad thing, but also if it is gonna be a thing, let's use it and make it a good thing if we can. So that's why, for me, any piece of advice is just, so before I took the bar, the California bar is like the hardest bar in the nation. So of course, man, I was valedictorian in my class, by the way, so there's no reason I shouldn't have passed the bar, but I still was like, oh my God, am I gonna pass it? Am I gonna do this? And so I had a big poster, and I wrote, Anne, you can and you will pass the California bar. And every day I had it on my door. And I had to tell myself that too. Like, cause there's days I didn't feel like I was going to. There's days when I didn't think that I was. And so I think those affirmations, and then when I did pass the bar, it was still kind of like, okay, great. Well, you just passed the bar, you're just a lawyer, you know? So it's like you achieve one thing, you go up and down, but give yourself some grace, and it's okay to feel that way. Just like the power in it is just moving on and telling yourself that you're a baddie.
Big takeaway there, Ashlyn.
I would say like this is so simple, but like finding the positives in like the little things or like everything you do. I think it's so easy for us to like nitpick and like see the negatives in what we're doing, how we look. You know, even after this talk, I know I'm gonna like nitpick on what I said and like why I cried, but like it's literally goes a long way to just saying something positive about yourself or positive about something you've done or how you look. Like it's so simple, but it goes, yeah, like you said, like fake it till you make it. Like it goes so far in really just, you know, like building your confidence and overcoming, imposter syndrome.
I would say I mean, you guys are all here, know that everyone has it. And I think kind of touching on what Anne said is that I think in those moments it's the most revealing about yourself and your character. And so accept it as a chance of not belittling yourself, criticizing yourself, and in that moment being able to strengthen, because we're gonna I accept that I'm gonna have this feeling all the way until I'm, hopefully senile and old. But so with that strengthening of in that moment, what is that like? How am I gonna act? What am I growing from it? How am I taking from that? So I truly agree with Anne. It is in a way a good thing and a reminder of ourselves and kind of like bolstering your kind of like own mental strength of like, oh yeah, I don't know this thing, but I can. What am I gonna do in this moment? And so far that's worked for me, yeah.
For me, it's learn to just focus on what you can control. What do you do with this hour? What do you do in the next half an hour? And then let go what you can't control. You can't control other people's success, so let it go. Don't focus on that. And then the other half of it is just go through it with your sense of humor, because life is unpredictable. And if you're punching for something higher, a bigger goal, you're gonna go through some hurdles you never even thought you would, and just go through it and see the humor in it, and it just helps you, make it through to the next level.
Beautiful. Thank you so much to our incredible panel. Let's give them a round of applause. Wonderful insights. And let's go ahead and open it up to the audience if there's questions.
Thank you to all the panelists for being so vulnerable, especially as a mom. I'm a mom of two, and I know how hard that is. And I just wanted to say to Ashlyn, thank you so much for being extra vulnerable and showing us what it feels to love yourself and rebuild yourself again. And I hope you know that this whole room supports you and loves you. I think we talked a lot about imposter syndrome and the things that you had to do to overcome it, but I'm curious to know, even though you've accomplished so many amazing things, as you're looking forward in your life, what's your moonshot dreams?
So I think first, my biggest dream, is to go to my Parsons in New York and study fashion design there. And while I'm there, I really want to create, still continue to build my brand, but I really want to, in the end, the end goal is to create a luxury couture fashion brand. And I really, aspire to be like Alexander McQueen, and I want, my work to be very much more accessible, and I want to expand to shoes and purses and sunglasses and everything. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I drive off the Bay Bridge into the city often, and I have 3 kids in the back screaming. So, Anne, you kind of know what that feels like. and I'm flustered and I'm driving, and then I see your billboard and it says, something wrong, call Ann Fong. And I really want to call the number, but unfortunately, you don't provide said services, so maybe you can have like an option of dial number 1 and get help with relief of your kids. My question is along the theme of kind of parenting. In your lifetime, if you reflect back on growing up, what did your parents do, or what could they have done to kind of help you grow up, maybe not feeling imposter syndrome so strongly, or if you could hear their voice saying something to you and reassuring you, and that would help you through, what would that be? Thank you.
Oh, I have a good one. I grew up with a father who is very, very sweet, very, very kind, but I can count on 0 fingers the number of times he's complimented me. 0, and I think it's very common. And my dad's very nice. He's not harsh with me. He's always very nurturing, but words of affirmation is non-existent in my household. And I'm wondering if I might like flip the other way too hard with my own daughter, of like just showering her with praise every single day. But I think it does matter, right? I think it just, case in point, I think I got a 97 on a high school chemistry test, and my dad goes, oh, you could have gotten that 3-point, right? And I'm like, thanks, Father. That was very nice of you. So yeah, words of affirmation.
Okay, so luckily, so I come from a family of 3. I'm the oldest. Luckily, my parents didn't compare us to each other, but I did get a lot of comparison to my friends, and I do find that was not very helpful. So I would say the feeling of comparison, and I know they mean well. They want me to have like, I don't know, a northern star of guidance and whatnot of who to look to. But I feel like at the end of the day, my thought was like, oh, to be a good daughter, I should just follow in their footsteps and not. I didn't spend enough time thinking about what truly mattered to me, what was my value, what was my importance, what am I passionate about, until college. And sometimes when I look at that, I'm like, oh, I had to get away from them, and all that time spent, it's like, in a way, it's like I needed that to find my own independent thinking. So I would say that would be,
I agree. Same way my parents were like that. We didn't get any compliments, so it was like, yay, and silence. And so growing up in that way is pretty difficult, especially when you do have friends that are maybe more Americanized and have parents that actually say, I love you, great job. And so it was kind of hard. But as I grew older, same thing as what you were saying, Victoria, that I knew that they loved me. I knew that they would support me. They just didn't know how to do it, just because that's not from they didn't do that. And so I learned to accept that. And as I got older, I think like in my later teens, one day I just said to my mom and dad, and I'm telling you, we've never said the words I love you, like, to each other. And I was like, Mom, Dad, I love you. And they just went about their day. They didn't say it back. Then the next day, I said, I love you, Mom and Dad. I love you too. And it was weird, but I broke that kind of generational, and it took me to do that. And so now every day we tell each other we love each other. But I knew we had it. And so it just took that step from me.
As a kid getting raised by more Americanized parents, I would say definitely there's a lot of back and forth. I want to appreciate more how much she has changed for me, how my parents have changed for me, to really understand what I'm going through and raise me as Asian, but then also as American. There's such a balance, and I feel like we're always kind of going back and forth with that. Yeah.
Chris.
Hello. Well, I wanted to thank you guys for being such great women role models for the Asian community. It's so heartwarming. I brought my daughter here to get inspired by people like yourselves, and I wanted to ask. She's 12, and she's at the point where she's trying to figure out what she wants to do. What advice would you give your 12-year-old self back then to kind of power you to where you're at today?
I think for me, it would be just do more. Just try a bunch of things and be less afraid of failure. And I think I was the type of kid that was good in my studies. I defaulted to that. It's because that was a source of confidence. I was good at it. So I didn't do a lot of things that at least in my head, I don't think I'm very good at. So I didn't step out my comfort zone until probably college. But I wish I did that a little bit more, a little earlier, because then later on, you're still gonna have to figure out. You're still gonna have to do the things that you're not good at to kind of figure out where your interest and your skill level kind of aligns. So yeah, as a 12-year-old, just do more, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think to go off of that, like, almost to pair with it is have an open mind to everything, because you're 12 is, oh man, to be 12 again, but like to know that, as you enter, high school and college, your world just opens and opens exponentially, and the people that you meet become more and more diverse in the way they think. And I think one thing that I am thankful for my parents is, because they didn't want to pay for childcare, they threw me into whatever class possible. So, like, I think I did like arts and crafts, Chinese folk dancing, swimming, ice skating. Like, I literally had to do all of this stuff. And while not all of them stuck, just trying something different and exercising that skill has made me feel less afraid when I'm in environments that are different and foreign. And I found that to be really helpful, especially in college, when you really need to put yourself out there to find those opportunities and seek out, the kind of those passions and, the answers that you need. So I would say that is what I guess values me. Yeah.
I agree with what both of you guys have said, and I think there's such I don't for me, I would say just don't put too much pressure into thinking that this is the thing that I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. It's really not. It's just something you want to enjoy doing. You're so young. There's so many opportunities to explore. I wish I had done more sports and or just group activities. I think are super just fun. It's so fun, and I feel like it's the perfect time to explore that.
You're 12, so have fun. Okay, that's the most important thing. You're gonna have time to figure out your future, but in having fun, I want you to just start thinking, what are the things that make you happy? What are the things that make your heart flutter? Things that you enjoy and make you smile. Because I think in the end, that will lead you to maybe what you're meant to do for the rest of your life. But just, you're 12, you don't have to have it all figured out, just have some fun and think about it a little bit.
I kind of wanted to add to that, which is, I think when I was 12, and I think 12 all the way to high school was the peak of really, really caring what your peers think about you. That will still be there, and it's not important, but at the same time, it's also kind of going off of what Anne says, what makes you happy? Which group of peers make you the happiest? Which group of peers elevate you? And what do you truly enjoy? Because it's impossible to make everyone happy, and it's really hard to find your niche, and it's impossible not to think about what other people or other groups might think about you. But at the same time, it's just the few that click with you that really matter.
One more. Oh gosh, you pick. You pick. Well, I had someone. Anybody on this side? I didn't want to. Okay, yes. And we'll stick around after to answer more questions for folks we can get to.
Thank you all for empowering us all today. And I would like to know from each of the ladies, what was your greatest inspiration?
Greatest motivation?
Yes.
I think I've always been driven by the fact that my parents, immigrated from Vietnam to come to America for this American dream. And I've, at a young age, always heard about that story, the struggle, and I've always carried that with me. I knew that whatever I did in life, I always wanted to make them proud and to have your parents be proud of you, especially with all the sacrifices that they made. As much as I knew I was doing something for myself, and I know I wanted to do something where it almost makes them feel like the journey was worth it. I mean, we're here in America, so it's obviously worth it anyway, but I've always been motivated and thinking about their sacrifices. So when I think I'm working hard, I go back and think about what my parents did and how they lived in Vietnam and how they tell me they carried the buckets of water from the beach. They had no bathroom, they had no anything, and how hard their life was there. So it motivates me to think that we're here in the land of opportunity and everything we have. There's no reason for me not to be able to be successful and to chase my dreams. My parents did.
I agree with what you said. I think my parents really like motivated me. Like they also immigrated here, and just seeing how hard they worked for us and like the amount of like opportunities and like compromises they have made and sacrifices they've made for me, and like how much they've changed and grown with me. Like I am motivated to grow like just as much as them, and like they've adapted so much to like how me and my brother are, and like how we're so different than how they were raised. And I think they motivate me every day, and like how hard they work. Like I see my dad working for his startup, and I see my mom working in a new firm. Like it's very inspiring because I know they like also went against what their parents like kind of wanted for them, and I saw how far they've come, and I want to make them proud. Yeah.
I probably. I'm sorry. Yes. I think for me, it probably started out as, family, just through same thing, sacrifice, support. My mom was also, it's funny, my mom was also from Vietnam, ran away from the war, and my siblings and I would talk about refugee mentality, because my mom, she has just that survivor mentality. She's always on. She's always thinking like probably the worst case scenario all the time. So it started out as that. But I think now I can definitely say that my biggest motivation is the freedom to say no, and the freedom to build what we like the way we want it, how we want it, and be able to drive those decisions, because we both came from a very corporate world, bureaucracy, and just seeing how, we can tell you, when we started out as chemists, they keep us in the basement. They don't let us out. You think that like beauty, R&D should be celebrated. No. It's all marketing. So I think in that journey, we just realized it's like, man, I think we're kind of addicted to now that power, and I would say, now it's kind of been ourselves and that freedom to operate the way we want. Yeah.
I think this is maybe a little weird, but to me, I always remember my grandpa is very chit-chatty. He had his war that he lived through. He's from China, fought the communists, blah, 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 went to Taiwan, that route. And he used to tell me not just war stories, but just a lot of stories of what he did to get the family there. But he's always so funny about it, and the weird things that he did to survive and this and that. And I don't know why it made me think this way, but for me, it's like one day, maybe I'll have grandchildren, maybe I won't, but I will be somewhere, be that crotchety grandma that tells stories unwanted to children. But what stories will I tell? Do I tell them that I worked in corporate for 35 years and I retired with a nice healthy pension? Like, to me, I'm really driven by the stories that I will be able to tell at that age. I don't want to live a linear life. I want to do the weird things. I want to launch a product I want to launch. I want to look back at my 30 years or 30, 40 years working and not have it be a blur of meetings that could have been an email. So that's kind of my motivation.
Okay, well, thanks so much again to our incredible panelists of exceptional Asian American women. Thank you to Stand With Asians for bringing us all together, and thank you to all of you for participating, for listening. We hope you got some great insights out of this discussion, and I believe we can all stick around for a little bit to answer any other additional questions you guys might have. So thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.